Welcome back. So, what are we doing today? Well, we're off to I was going to call it a fashion shoot, but it's not really a fashion shoot. It's a commercial shoot for a clothing website. They've got 20 new outfits that they want shots of. They also want headshots of the whole team that work for the business. I think that I'm a bit unsure, but they seem to also do have a kind of studio or something where they do hair and makeup and makeovers and that kind of thing. And I think they've got a few clients coming in to sort of show off their work. So a bit of a varied shot, but mainly for the clothes. So a proper studio, you know, right backdrop, flashes and all this sort of stuff. So I'm going to do some video, behind the scenes video, setting up, and I don't suppose I'll get time to do any commentary, but hopefully you'll find this interesting. And it's just, you know, a day in the life of a professional photographer. By the way, I did a wedding on Tuesday, so 4 or 5 days ago. My first wedding of 2021. I used my Fuji X100, which I went on about in my last video. If you haven't seen my last video, now would be a good time for me to say, why not subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll see those videos. Actually, while I'm here, let me very quickly run you through that rather than do a separate video, because I haven't actually got an awful lot to say about the Fuji. The job I got the Fuji for was the close-up, unobtrusive, going sort of being unnoticed, and yes, it did all of that. It worked brilliantly from that point of view. It's very easy to use, and I was very hopeful when I was using it during the wedding that it was going to be the answer for the future. But when I got back home, looked in Lightroom, there were too many shots where the focus was just off, just by a couple of inches. It kind of focused on maybe someone's buttonhole rather than on their face. The exposure was also a bit off. I think because maybe I use spot metering, which I'm used to on the Nikon, and maybe the size of the area that it uses to calculate the metering is different, bigger or smaller than Nikon. It's just not what I'm used to, and some of the shots were overexposed, which on the Nikon they wouldn't have been. And also when I tried then to pull back the highlights in Lightroom, there wasn't as much leeway as I have with a Nikon image. Nikon images I can pull back highlights to a certain degree, shadows about 3 or 4 times more, but didn't get that sort of flexibility on the Fuji shots. Only one card slot, and of course when I think about my wedding photography, probably 60% or more, 65% of the shots I would do would be at the 35mm focal length, which is what the Fuji is. So if I'm going to use the Fuji, then it's going to be doing 65% of my shots at a wedding, and so it's going to become my main wedding camera rather than my Nikon D780. So it just doesn't seem to make sense. So I'm rethinking the whole thing, and please, if you've got a Fuji X100 whatever, I'm not saying it's a bad camera. It just doesn't quite fit the bill for what I was after. Well, maybe for what I was initially after, but when I give it more thought, I don't want a camera that I'm going to use at weddings to take 65% of my shots. I've already got that, a D780. So I'm looking at some other things I can do, and one of those is to put your fingers in your ears if you don't want to hear this. I'm going to possibly sell my D700. Money is a to be honest, is a bit tight. I lost about 20 weddings last year, loads of family shoots, loads of boudoir shoots, so money isn't exactly overflowing at the moment. And what I'm thinking maybe I could do is sell the D700, sell the Fuji, and put some money to it and buy a Nikon Z5. Okay, so finished the shoot on the way home, and that went very well actually. I haven't done a tethered shoot for a very long time. It's not something I do very often, but it was great. Nothing went wrong. Everything worked as I expected it to. I was using the D700 only because my laptop isn't the most up-to-date laptop. It's probably 3 years old. It's not running the latest version of Lightroom, and I can't install the latest version of Lightroom, and it's only the very latest version of Lightroom that supports tethered shooting with the D780. So I had to use the D700, which is not a problem. All the images are for a website. So the fact that we're only on 12 megapixels instead of 24 is going to have no effect whatsoever. So everyone seemed very happy, very pleased with the photos. We got on really well. I really enjoyed it. That was really good fun. So I'll get home, I'll load the photos into Lightroom, and we'll take a look at a few of the photos and some of the behind the scenes video. But just before we get on to the behind the scenes video of the clothes shoots and the headshots and all that kind of stuff, just before that, I've been talking about changing cameras, and this is now 4 or 5 days since I did the bit of the video you've just seen, by the magic of technology, and I've been losing sleep and thinking and looking at prices and working out what I could do, given that everything kicks off in like 2-3 weeks time, and I'm back up to doing a wedding every week, and in fact I just booked another wedding, and I've got 4 weddings in 1 week in July. So things are going to get really busy. I talked briefly about money earlier, and money is going to sort itself out very quickly. But in the meantime, I've been thinking about my photography, and really what I want to do. I said I was going to get a Z5. Well, I said it. There's a difference between saying it and actually doing it. Well, it's ordered. It's on order. It should be 8 to 10 days. My Fuji X100T is on eBay if you're after an X100T. That is a beautiful camera. It really is. And if it fitted exactly what I wanted to do, I would keep it, no questions asked. It's gorgeous. Also for sale is my D700, 11,600 shots I think, which I used at the studio shoot. Again, gorgeous. I mean, it really is in as good a condition as the D780 here, which is 2 months old, 3 months old. So they're going, and obviously once they've gone, the Z5 is partly paid for anyway. What Z5 am I getting? Because what lenses am I going to use? So what I've decided is that my only G lens is my 50mm 1.8 is my only G lens. All the others are D lenses. I have been hoping and waiting and fingers crossed that Nikon were going to come out with a D to Z adapter. They haven't, and I could be waiting another 5 years for them to do that. Maybe they'll never do it, I don't know. It's not available, and there's no rumours that it's about to be released. So what I'm getting is a Z5 or a Z5, I'm not sure, and an FTZ adapter, which this will then fit onto, and that will be my 50mm camera, and that will be the camera that I use for all of the mixed in with the wedding party shots, all the documentary stuff, candid stuff. I'm presuming it's going to be pretty quiet. Hopefully almost as quiet as the Fuji. If not, obviously it's got a silent shutter as well. So noise wise it's going to be brilliant. It's going to be smaller. I mean, the 50mm lens isn't a particularly big lens. The body of the Z5 is a little bit, somewhat smaller than the 780. So it should be a fairly unobtrusive camera. And that's what I'm hoping to use. And it's not going to be my main camera. It's not going to be a backup. I'm going to have two equal partners at a wedding. The D780 is going to be fitted with the 85 1.4 D lens, so I'll be getting two kind of different shots at the same scene. Just pick up one camera, get some shots, pick up the other camera, get some quite different shots, because I'll be using the 50mm lens, probably about f5.6, kind of street shooting style. The 85 will be at 1.4, portrait sort of photography style. So two very different looks to the photos, just in the time it takes to pick up a different camera. And I just wanted to talk about the Z5 for a few minutes. Bear with me, please. And I will be doing a first impression when the Z5 arrives. We'll do some shots. I'm not going to bother with the unboxing. It's a bloody camera in a box. But I will be doing some first impressions, doing some shots and giving you my thoughts. But my hopes at the moment are that it's going to do pretty much everything the D780 does. The Z5 has been billed by Nikon as, and I've got Nikon's site up here. It doesn't say, but it said Nikon's entry-level full-frame mirrorless camera. And I think they've done themselves a disservice. I think they've shot themselves in the foot with that, because a lot of people will look at that title, that tagline, entry-level full-frame mirrorless camera, and then look at the price, and we're looking at £1,200, £1,300 just for the camera, and think, entry-level? You know, £1,200, £1,300? That's there's no way that's entry-level. And so I think the Z5 has not been very popular, which is kind of a good thing, because they're now being fairly well discounted, and they're no longer £1,200, £1,300. I think that's the price that Nikon want for it. Yes, well, discounted from £12.99 to Nikon are discounting it to £12.09. I've actually got it several £100 cheaper than that from a camera site, which I will give you my views on that camera site, and that camera site is called Wow Cameras. I have used them once before. I bought a flash from there previously, some months ago, and I think sometimes in the past I bought a lens from there as well. And I've never had a problem. They've got a pretty good rating. You do have to wait 8 to 10 days for them to dispatch the camera, so it could be more like 2 weeks before you actually get it. But is that a problem if you're going to save several £100s? I'm hoping it all goes okay, but I'll give you my feedback on that as well, in case you're looking for a bargain for your next camera as well. But the Z5, from looking at the specs, from looking at the reports and reviews, it pretty much does everything that the D780 does. 24 megapixels. It's not a backside illuminated sensor that this has got, so the low light performance is not quite as good, but I bet you have to do laboratory tests to actually see the difference. I don't think in reality you're really going to see much difference. It's a similar sensor to a D750, and I never had any problems with low light photography with the D750. It only shoots 4.5 frames a second, as opposed to, I think this does 7.5 or 8. I've never, I mean, I haven't done that many renders with this. I've only done, you know, a handful, but I've never used high speed burst. It's always the medium or low, whatever you would call it, which is, I think, 4 frames a second. So for weddings, for me, that's fine. If you're a shooter who does action, you know, kids doing skateboard stunts and stuff like that, you're going to want something faster. But for what I do, I think that's plenty good enough. Battery life isn't anywhere near as good as the D780, which is good for 2,000 shots. But I have, because of all the cameras I've had over the years, have all used the same battery. The Z5 uses the same battery as the D780. I think I've got the 5 batteries in total, plus I'll be getting one with the new camera as well. So having one or two spare batteries charged up in the bag isn't going to be a problem. And I really can't think of anything else that the Z5 doesn't have that the D780 does have. The Z5, in addition to the D780, has image stabilization. Now, because I'm only using a G lens on the adapter, it's only got 3-axis stabilization instead of 5. I'm not too fussed about that. It's not a huge deal. The video quality is the same as the D780, I believe. I will only be using 1080p at possibly at 60 frames a second, because I would want to do maybe some of them in slow-mo. And that will have 3-axis stabilization. This has got none, so it's going to be a fairly decent jump in image quality for videos. I only do short clips anyway at a wedding, 5 to 10 second clips, but they will be better. The EVF, now, a long time ago, before I got the Sony, over 2 years ago, I tried the Z6 just out of interest, because I'd already said it couldn't be my wedding camera because it only had 1 card slot. The Z5, by the way, has of course got 2 card slots. I was so impressed by the EVF on the Z6. It is truly gorgeous, and much better than the Sony A7 III that I got, which I think the Nikon is 3.7 million dots, the Sony is 2.7 or something like that. But also Nikon have done something with the glass and some lenses in front of the EVF to make it even better, and it really is a very good EVF. So, having used the Fuji fairly recently, which had the optical viewfinder and the EVF, I must say there are maybe advantages to having the EVF, and I'll be quite happy to use the EVF in most cases. If I do want an optical viewfinder, I've still got the 780. The big issue that I've got, and I've nearly finished rabbiting on about this, the big issue I've got with the Z5 is, or any Z camera, is the lenses. I can buy F-mount glass at about, probably, good condition, second hand. I mean, I've in all the lenses I've had in my 7 or 8 years of being a professional wedding photographer, I've never had a bad Nikon lens, second hand. So I'm very happy to use those. So you maybe got to be a little bit careful about which ones you buy, but if you're a little bit selective, as I say, I've never had a problem. And they're about 1/3 of the price of an equivalent Z mount lens, which is just crazy. The 35 1.8 S lens for the Z5 is, I think I'm right in saying, it's £780. I can get an F mount 35 1.8 G lens for around £350. So maybe not quite 1/3, but certainly well less than half the price. So it's going to be some time before I start switching across from my F-mount glass to Z-mount lenses. Several years probably. And I just love the D lenses, so I will still be using the D lenses on the D780. I will get in a month or two a 35 1.8 G lens, so on my Z5 I will use a 35 lens and a 50 lens. The D780 will be for the 85 and the 135 shots, and that should see me through weddings for this year. So following on from this is the behind the scenes at the studio shoot. There may be a few interesting things there that you see. It's nothing. It's nothing spectacular, but if you want to see real life as a professional wedding photographer, hang around and watch that. And I'll be back in hopefully 10-14 days time, and we'll take a look at a Z5. Cheers till then. Bye.
So here you join me, just starting to do the setup. Well, I say starting to do the setup. I've obviously got the lights and camera already set up in the backdrop, and the tethered shooting to the PC there, to the laptop rather.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to achieve at this point is correct exposure. That's the first thing I'm trying to do, other than obviously tether the camera to the laptop, which wasn't a problem actually. It worked first time. But trying to get the balance between the flashes correct and the ambient. Now for a shoot like this, I want to have the exposure without the flashes to be a little bit below what it should, below correct exposure, so we're about a stop underexposed, no more than that. Otherwise the background, which obviously is white, is going to become really dark grey, and we're going to be too reliant on the flashes, which I didn't want. I wanted, because this is for a website, for a clothing magazine if you like, I want the backdrop to be, and having discussed this with the client, very light grey, not brilliant white, hence why I haven't got any flash or any lighting on the actual backdrop. They wanted, as I say, a light grey, and was really just working towards getting that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then we're on to the proper headshots, and I will have just before that played around again with the flashes, not just to get the exposure correct, but to also get the look correct. So I've got the flash you can see on the right hand side there with the fairly deep softbox, is actually a little bit stronger than the umbrella on the left. Just there's a little bit of variation in the lighting, but nothing too dramatic. These are for a website. They're not supposed to be sort of beautiful artistic portrait shots. What they were after was just nice ordinary shots of the team. So of course that's what I'm trying to deliver. Now the camera I think is probably on around about f5, 80th of a second, and I've got the 85 1.4D lens on there. I did later switch to the 135 f2D lens for some of the headshots. And here we're just whizzing through the changing the backdrop. We're moving on to the clothing shots now, so I want the backdrop well out onto the floor so that we've got a completely white backdrop, both underneath the model and behind them. Also, of course, one of the challenges of shooting in studio setup like this is with flashes is not to get overspill onto the background, not to get dark shadows, and that was something that did take a bit of work to get there, but we got there. And then we started off with a few shots of shoes, and then we moved on to the clothing shots proper. Yes. That's nice.
Yeah.
So
this is the top, actually.
It's just
and it's
the top.
It's a skirt.
It's just the skirt.
It's a skirt, but
It's just the skirt.
but it's fine. We could do it as
I
an
mean,
outfit.
I can crop it, but yeah. Skirt and shoes.
Yeah.
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 You just want to lift that up a little bit, just so I get a little bit more, and just maybe just up one side and down the other, so it's a bit off. That's better. Yeah. That's good.
That was what I'm smiling for.
Have a look and see what you think.